Hi guys. The other day I was reading my daughter a book and it was the story of the Emperor's New Clothes. This is an old story, but some of you have maybe heard it, some of you haven't heard it in years, so I'm just going to give you a brief summary. So the emperor, this king, had everything. He loved that he had everything, and he liked to let everybody know that he had everything. And one day a man comes to his castle and says that he has magic clothes that he's willing to make for the king with a magic fabric that only intelligent people can see. If you're stupid, then you can't see the fabric. And so this man holds the fabric up to the king and he says, "You can see it, can't you? Because you're such a wise king." And of course the king says, "Yes, I can see it. Of course I can see it. I'm not stupid." But he can't see anything. But he doesn't want anybody to know that. So he hires this guy to make him these magic clothes with this special magic fabric that only intelligent people can see. And he pays this guy all this money so that he can make these magic clothes for him. And he sends different people in, different servants, and he says, "Go check on my magic clothes that are being made. And if you can't see them, it's just because you're stupid." And so he sends different servants in. They go in and they check on the guy who is sewing nothing. There's nothing there. But none of them want to admit that. So they all say they can see the clothes. And they say, "Oh my gosh, they're the most amazing clothes we've ever seen. They're gorgeous." And this whole process goes on because nobody wants to admit they're stupid. And to the point of it's the day that the man is done making the king's clothes. And so the king is going to have a parade and show the whole kingdom his new attire. And so they have this procession through the town. And the king is wearing these special magic clothes that only intelligent people can see. But the reality is he's walking through town naked. And nobody wants to say anything because everyone wants to say they're smart. Nobody wants to admit they're stupid and they can't see these clothes. And finally, it takes a child. And a child walks up to the king and says, "You're not wearing anything." And the king said, "You're right, I'm not." Now, when I read that story to my daughter, the Lord began to speak to me because, believe it or not, God speaks through more than one book. And so on that particular night, God spoke through the Emperor's New Clothes. And what he was showing me was that we are so often like the emperor. And we have scriptures, Old Testament and New Testament, about being clothed. I just chose two. There's a ton, but I chose two. So the first one I'm going to read to you is in Isaiah 61 verse 10. Isaiah 61 verse 10. "I delight greatly in the Lord. My soul rejoices in my God. For he has clothed me with garments of salvation and arrayed me in a robe of righteousness, as a bridegroom adorns his head like a priest, and as a bride adorns herself with her jewels." Okay? And then another really common one that most of us probably know is in Ephesians. So I'm looking at Ephesians 6, verses 14. So I'll read 14 through 17. "Stand firm then with the belt of truth buckled around your waist, with the breastplate of righteousness in place, and with your feet fitted with the readiness that comes from the gospel of peace. In addition to all of this, take up the shield of faith with which you can extinguish all flaming arrows of the evil one. Take the helmet of salvation and the sword of the Spirit, which is the word of God." And so those are just two examples of how we're clothed with different things from the Lord. And they're beautiful things. I heard in those scriptures righteousness and truth and peace and faith and salvation. Those are gorgeous things that we all want to be clothed in. But there's a reality that none of us want to admit when we don't feel like we're clothed in that. None of us want to be the non-spiritual person that says, "I don't know his peace. I don't know what's truth. What is faith? because we don't want anybody to know that we don't know. We don't want anybody to know that we haven't experienced it. And what if we could be like a child? Remember, Jesus says that the kingdom belongs to children, and we have to be like a child in order to see and experience and inherit the kingdom. Well, kids are honest. It took a child to say, King, you're naked. You don't have any clothes on. You've been swindled. But what if we could be childlike for a moment and be honest with God? Because I think He can handle it. And say, I don't know what your truth is. Or here's what I've been told is true about you, and you know what? I don't believe it. What if we said that? A good parent, and we say he's a good father, a good parent would say, well, let's talk about that. Let me show you. Let me teach you. Let me love you. Let me bring you into an experience with me. Instead of us just pretending we're clothed in something, but we're really looking at ourselves and saying, I don't see it. I don't know that. What if some of us even went so far? Because many of us have spent years and years and years inside Christianity, labeled as a believer. But there are some of us out there today that if we were just very honest with ourselves, we would say, I don't know what I believe about God. I don't know who He is. I don't know what salvation is. What is that? And we just allowed the Lord to minister to our hearts and allowed genuine clothing of righteousness and genuine clothing of peace and truth to just be draped over us instead of us walking around naked and exposed and just pretending, yeah, everything's fine. I've got it all together. Let's just be honest like children. And when those big concepts of truth and righteousness and peace, all those things, if we could just say, Lord, show me your truth. So let's just do that right now. Those main things that were in those two verses that we read, let's just ask Him that. So Lord, what does your truth look like? Show me what it's like to be clothed in your truth. What is righteousness? And Lord, show me my righteousness. And just imagine the Lord draping you in the righteousness that He's named you, that He's called you. Lord, what is your peace? Show me a new aspect of your peace today. And allow Him to place it on you. And Lord, bring me into a new level, a new awareness of faith. Because we have to remember that faith is His persuasion. And persuasion happens through experience. It's not what we do. It's not what we've been told. But it's what we've experienced in Him. That's what builds our faith. And so if we're sitting here saying, I'm not clothed in faith, then say, Lord, clothe me in faith. Let me experience you in a new way today. And what about salvation? That's a big word. That's right there with that peace. It's the protection and the provision and the healing. It's all those things. And so just imagine yourself allowing the Lord to dress you in his salvation. Have a conversation with him today. And let's just be honest. So many believers are walking around naked, pretending that they're clothed because nobody wants to admit, hey, I'm not feeling it. I'm not seeing it. He can handle that conversation. He can handle it. And he'd love to have that conversation with you. Be blessed.